The baby formula Chronobacter recall, what the FDA found. Last month, I wrote about the now infamous Chronobacter baby formula recall and hypothesized that there were hygiene issues at the production facility. Well, those suspicions were confirmed. Last week, the US FDA shared what they saw when they inspected the production facility in February and March. It was their third inspection of that facility in 2.5 years. The recall has now been linked to a second officially acknowledged death, with possibly more to come. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, is currently investigating other cases to find out if they too are linked to the same batches of infant formula. It's not as easy as you might imagine to investigate such things. Healthcare providers are not obliged to report Chronobacter illnesses to the authorities in the USA. Last week's report from the FDA doesn't include final conclusions about actual regulatory violations. It just shares observations. They are not pretty. So first up, pathogens at the facility. The FDA inspectors found Chronobacter sakazakii on a hopper that was being used to drop small plastic scoops into containers of formula. So they're the little scoops that you dish out formula with. Once inside the containers, the scoops are directly in contact with the formula. They also found Chronobacter sakazakii on the floor near a dryer and a door in a production area. They also found it in a spot where debris had collected between duct tape on the floor and an adjacent wall. Duct tape on the floor is a big food safety no-no. Tape and other what we call temporary engineering solutions can collect food debris. The food debris allows pathogens to evade cleaning regimes and proliferate in the food, meaning more pathogens in a facility. It wasn't just the FDA that was finding Chronobacter in the factory. The manufacturer themselves had already found it on 8 occasions in 2020 and 21, and they found it 20 times in February 2022, including in high care areas. High care areas are areas that are critical to hygiene, often places where there is open or exposed product. Pathogens in the product. So it's one thing to find pathogen in a factory, but was it getting into the product itself? The answer is yes. The company's own product testing records showed that 2 batches of infant formula from 2019 and 2020 contained Chronobacter. GMP failures. GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. In addition to duct tape on the floor, there were numerous leaks, condensation, and standing water in the factory. The FDA proposed, there were leaks, condensation, and standing water in the factory. The FDA proposed that one of the dryers was not being properly dried after cleaning. The report also said that there were cracks and pits in the main chamber of at least 2 of the facility's milk or liquid dryers. While formula was being produced, the FDA inspectors saw workers fail to sanitize their shoes correctly before they entered production areas, and some did not sanitize their shoes at all. The company blamed the contamination that was found on building contractors who were walking on the roof and who didn't change or sanitize their shoes before coming inside again. However, the company's own procedures should have prevented this from happening in the first place. Failures in consumer complaint handling. The company did not follow their own procedures for investigating consumer complaints, which include the need to test retained samples for microbial pathogens. The FDA said they treated infant death and infant illness the same, and I assume that means with respect to the degree of seriousness of the complaint. The FDA report says the company closed a complaint investigation without performing testing on product from the batch in question. Overall, the FDA summarised their observations as follows. There was no system of process controls to control biological hazards, and food contact surfaces were not maintained to protect infant formula from being contaminated. Wow. So here are the learnings. Next week, I'm going to explain the challenges that manufacturers face when attempting to keep pathogens like Chronobacter sakazakii out of infant formula. And I'm going to unpack why the FDA inspectors were so concerned about the leaks, the condensation, and the other water in the facility. So in short, there's been one more death and possibly more illnesses linked to the recalled formula. An intensive An intensive investigation at the production site found hygiene problems and poor practices. The pathogen was found at multiple sites in the facility months after the first death was reported and more than 3 months after the FDA first raised concerns. The manufacturer did not test retention samples of the affected batch after receiving a complaint about an infant death for that batch.